Welcome to Eye on the Illini. Mike Kegley here with Brad Sturdy, Kedrick Prince. What I learned two things this one. One is Morez Johnson is more valuable than one would think. Two is Tomislav Ivicic is a guy that we really need to not be sick. And I learned a bonus thing is apparently Draven Gibbs Lawhorn can play basketball. So those are the three things that I picked up from tonight's game. And, boy, that second half, Brad, you wanted to know what they were going to do differently defensively. So what did they do differently defensively in the second half?
Forget to show up.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have a little different approach. I thought for a large portion of that second half, they played hard. I thought even in the first half, I thought they played hard. But the problem they have is they don't play smart. They do so many just completely dumb things. And it's not just on offense. It's on defense. I mean, everybody focuses on turnovers and bad shots, whatever. Defensively, they leave guys. Okay, and how do you let there was one play, and I got a text message about, like, how do you let Tanjay post up Draven Gibbs Lawhorn and just not come and double? How do you not make him – you know what's going to happen. He's given up 50 pounds and 5 inches. What do you think's going to happen there? He scores, he gets the foul. Okay, Draven shouldn't have fouled him still, but it's an easy basket. And Illinois doesn't make anything hard for anybody defensively. And that's the thing. Like, I think they don't do anything defensively that makes things difficult for the other team. And they have to be better at that stuff if they want to be successful. I mean, you have to at least try and play defense. I mean, but the other thing is, I don't know if they know. I don't want to blame the players because I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if they know what they're supposed to be doing. Like, I really don't know if they understand what the game plan is, what they're supposed to be doing, whether it's on offense or defense. I don't think they can decide whether they're going to shoot threes, not shoot threes, get to the rim, not get to the rim, drive and kick. What are they going to do? I mean, I don't think they know. I mean, that's why you see so many. The amount of miscommunication, and maybe we can say it's practice time, whatever, but everybody has issues with that, and they have to be. It's just this is on the coaching staff. They have to do a better job of getting these guys ready to play and putting them in positions to succeed. On a positive note, Draven Gibbs Lawhorn continues to shoot a crazy percentage on his 2-point shooting. So it's really it's crazy. He's 7 of 12 tonight. He's 4 of 5 from 2. So he's first in the Big Ten. He's shooting like over 70% on 2-pointers. It's not like he's taking easy ones too. But man, that dude can make 15-foot fadeaways. He and Will Riley may set a record for most 15-foot fadeaways made this season. Highest percentage shooting. It's crazy.
I'm not going to sit and rip tonight either. I'm just, what's the point? I'm just going to, we do what we have to do, then move forward and, look to the Duke if you will. What's sad to me is that I know the fans are frustrated. For those who are listening to us, this is not Illinois basketball, and you're not used to it. And that's actually a good thing. Because you know what good basketball is, and Wisconsin's happy, and they should. It's been since 2019 since they beat Illinois, and so kudos to them tonight that they won. There's no next man up. The injuries make a difference. You lost 2 of your starting front court players. Go through the Big Ten. I pick any team, the worst team in the Big Ten, Penn State, whoever, and you tell me that if you miss those players that you're going to come out on top. You're probably not going to. Wisconsin's a great basketball team this year. They're playing well right now. You can't afford to have those players out. And then on top of it, here's why I guess I'm not upset. Illinois made a run, and every time they made a run, Wisconsin had an answer, and it was with the 3. They're just a good basketball team. So you have to tip your hat to them. Illinois is not a good team. They're not a whole team right now because they're not healthy. The Draven Gibbs Longhorn thing to me is the most frustrating thing to me ever. They're not allowed to shoot a bunch of 2-foot shots. 2-foot shot. That's horrible, Kedrick. 2-point field goals. They're just not supposed to. But at the end of the day, I saw a bunch of coaches over there clapping. I think, and I could be wrong, I don't know if they don't play him because he's small, But at the end of the day, he's productive. He guards. Yeah, those guys are going to shoot over top of him because he's not 6'3", but the dude can score. And you know what he did tonight? He didn't care. He just went out there and said, hell with it. I'm going to do what I have to do. And I think the only reason he got minutes was because Kylan Boswell and Casparis, they got in foul trouble. Otherwise, he wouldn't have played because he didn't play a lot in the first half.
I don't know if I'd agree with that because I think they gave KJ. I mean, they pulled him out after like 1 minute in the second half after that first turnover play. So I mean, like they just was like, okay, it's like I said, give him a shot and then go. And they put him in. Gibbs Lawhorn played 17 of the 20 minutes in the second half. So
which was great.
It was yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, but I think I think they just are running out of patience with those guys. The other thing is, I mean, Draven. I think there are times when he doesn't, defend well because he gets out of position, whatever. He obviously has the athleticism. But my thing is this: which guys do defend well?
That's what I was going to say, Brad. They all here's a complaint. They all do it, Brad, and that's the frustration on Draven and his family and his camp. They all make mistakes, and they're going to. I mean, I'm not even going to mention any player's name because that's immature, but they're going to make a mistake. But what I said earlier at halftime, he doesn't want to look over his shoulder. That's why in the second half, you just saw him. He just went on play. He knew Kylan was struggling. He knew KJ was struggling. He knew he was going to play. And that's what you got. It's frustrating. And there's no answer. There's no comments. We're going to play him more. He wasn't going to play. I know KJ went out in the first minute of the game because he turned the ball over, but he picked up a foul. And then Kylan was picking up fouls. I don't know. And I'm tired of talking about it. I know fans are sick of hearing me say it. I don't know what the answer is. I know if you ask, they're going to say he needs to play more minutes. He should get more time. Then do it because he's not afraid. He is not afraid to. He will go out there and compete. And I didn't get to say this, and I'll be really, really quick. I promise. The problem is they don't have that dog that everybody talks about. Brad, you mentioned that at the halftime podcast. Whoever that is, they just don't have that one guy who's just tough. You don't have to go out there and talk trash or punch anybody. They don't have a tough mentally guy out there. And the only guys who seem to have it to me a little bit, Will Riley has it a little bit. Draven definitely has it a little bit. Kylan potentially could, but they don't have a Terrence Shannon. And it's not all about scoring. Terrence refused to lose. Who on that roster that you can say right now, I mean, me personally, other than Draven, and maybe Will Riley, because those two dudes laid on the line. I'm not saying that KJ's not a good player, even the Beasage, because everybody knows he's my favorite player. But I don't see it, man. Oh, my gosh.
Well, I think I got to defend Ivicic there because the fact that he even played tonight is pretty stunning.
Yeah,
he had to go up there. He had to go up there and go to take a separate trip up there by himself. Yeah. He didn't come with the team. He doesn't tend to shoot around. He still plays 21 minutes just because he wants to. So I got to give him kudos for being tough. Jake Davis, of course, I'm told he got sick at halftime and is puking in the locker room. Didn't come out for the second half. Obviously, that's not ideal either. And I'm not saying he's like some world beater, but goodness gracious, you can't afford to not have. He's another guy. Just takes away from that front court depth. And forces you to play like, Humrick House 34 minutes because you have to play someone. Yeah. You're reaching a point where you don't have any other options. But they, they need more out of Kylan Boswell. He's got to be better. I thought Trey White tried, it just, it's just
he wasn't good tonight.
Yeah.
He wasn't good tonight, but he's got to get back into a flow too. I can understand a kid.
They can't win though if KJ plays that bad.
I agree.
It really can't. I mean,
we saw that with Purdue and Braden Smith, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And when they have Merez who can really play off the glass, and if Will Riley's cooking and Ivicic is cooking, you can get away with it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But you got a sick Ivicic. You got Will Riley who was just, he had 11 points on 9 shots. Although he did get drilled on a 3-pointer. How is that not a foul? Did you see that one?
Yes,
I mean, that was insane.
Yeah.
He went nuts. I would have gone nuts too. But so at the same time, but if those guys aren't cooking, you can't have KJ be that bad. I mean, 7 turnovers, no assists, and so forth. And I still think and I told you guys this. I told Mike this. I talked to an NBA guy today about KJ, and people are saying, well, he's fallen out of the draft so far. And there's the comment. I'm gonna tell you what. This is interesting, but they had this guy told me, he said, I'm telling you, KJ's a stud. He said he's going to be really good in the NBA. That's why he's going to be drafted in the top 10. He said they aren't using him correctly at Illinois. They aren't doing the right things with him. This is an NBA guy. So, and he said that's what you'll get from most NBA.
Could he send a note, Brad, on what they need to do?
And I wish I would like to see, and I think so they got to try to move, I think they got to move him more. They got to set more off-ball screens. Look at how much cutting and screening Wisconsin does off the ball.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they have ball screen actions too. Don't get me wrong, but it creates. How many times do they end up with empty ball screen on the side because of all the action off the ball? It creates the help isn't there, and so they get this empty ball screen action on the side. And then I watch. You watch good teams that run good offense. I always think about UConn. The sets when they run a set. I don't think UConn's that good this year, but man, when they run sets, they're so good at executing, and it's really hard. I watched the end of that Villanova game tonight. But these are things like some of these guys are really good at that. I don't feel like Illinois does that, but they could last year because you had studs like Damask who could really, get his own and create for others. You had Terrence Shannon who could just get downhill and make things happen. And so, I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to tell you that Brad Underwood isn't a good basketball coach. I think it's just, you have years when your team doesn't fit what you want to do.
Talk to Bill Self this year.
Yeah. I mean, is Bill Self a bad basketball coach this year?
Best. Yeah. He's the best in college basketball.
Right. I mean, so, and so this is where people get too caught up and, this guy can't coach, whatever this guy. No, it's just, they're having we have bad years. And this happens. Exactly. Yeah, there's no question. So, yeah, I mean,
I've been married 33 years. Trust me, my wife will tell you there were good years and there were bad years.
Yeah, there were.
But I've never been the number 6 guy in the draft.
No, exactly. You would definitely not be in them. Hey, in her draft, you're number 1, Mike. So they ish, somewhere around there. You're in the top. You're in the first round. We'll give you that. You're in the first. Yeah, somewhere in the top 32. So anyway, but no, I would just say this. I think that so they have to do a better job of putting these guys in position. I think, it's like they have had, and what he said, well, the thing is, like, they do a great job of getting players, and they have some really talented guys. But the other thing that we have to realize, you can't win in college basketball. And we thought maybe with the European guys it would be different, right? Because they played against higher competition. You don't win with freshmen. You don't win with freshmen as your best players. I'm not saying you can't have freshmen as your guy, but who are their best players? And really, Ivasic, we can say he's 21, but he's still a first-year guy. Yakichonis, first-year guy. Will Riley, first-year guy. Merez Johnson, first-year guy. Who are their best players?
You're right.
Those 4 guys, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this reminds me of how Kentucky struggled with Calipari when he didn't have those guys. Remember when they won the national title? Of course, they had a generational guy in Anthony Davis, but they also, if you remember, they had so many guys that could play. They had Darius Miller as a senior. They had you start looking at that lineup when you won and dones. When Duke won, you had Jones and Okafor, but they had other guys too. Terrence Jones was a sophomore for Kentucky, Doran Lamb sophomore, Darius Miller senior. You start putting. They had some freshmen, but they had guys even like who came in and gave them value. And Illinois doesn't have those guys who can kind of supplement, and they don't have a guy who's a generational talent either. So I mean, I just think that there is something to be said for not relying on freshmen, and hopefully that they don't, down the road. Hopefully they figure out that you can have freshmen, but boy, you better have some other dudes as well.
Well, the other thing that I find frustrating about this new world, and this is old man screaming in a cloud here, but we would be ecstatic to see this team 15 years ago, because you'd be like, man, these guys are freshmen, and wait for next year and the year after, they're going to beat the snot out of the rest of the Big Ten. But now you're thinking, that KJ is going to be gone this draft. Will Riley is a coin flip, probably gone, and all of a sudden you're thinking to yourself, well, we're never going to get to see that fruition. And that's where the Kentucky fans and even the Duke fans to a lesser extent get frustrated because they see some great talent, but they don't get the title at the end of the year or even close.
No, and you know what? I want to make a comment here real quick. I don't remember what the numbers were at halftime. I guess I could just click a button. But once again, 10 for 30 from 3, 33%. Wisconsin, 10 of 24. That's not going to be a recipe either, even if they're making them. I don't know what the answer is to that anymore either. And I could see what I didn't like was down the stretch. I don't want you guys to tell me what you thought. It was just 1-on-1. I mean, Draven shot one. I think Ben Rickhouse shot one, and Trey White. They just I didn't like that. If you're going to get beat, you still run your offense. You don't just come down, chuck up shots because it looks bad again. I mean, they're just not a good three-point shooting team, and even if they are making them, you're down by 20. It's different if you're a good three-point shooting team, but this isn't, and they're not. I just don't. I would, and I give Colin Boswell credit. Up until tonight, he has not launched a lot of those threes. He's been pretty solid as far as doing that. And I would give Ben Rickhouse credit. He was the least aggressive tonight. They didn't have one guy. I think, well, actually, as negative as I have been, I'm not going to say you guys about KJ. I think he led the team. He tied with the team in rebounding with him and Trey White. But then Draven, the little smallest guy on the team, had 4 rebounds and 5 assists. There's a place for him, fellas.
Well, and let's talk about.
Well, here's the weird part. Let's talk about. Think about Draven here. For 11 straight games, he played 20-plus minutes. 11 straight games, he played 20-plus minutes. And then for 3 games, he doesn't. And so this is so for 3 games, he doesn't play at all. And I get he was ill, whatever. But I don't know. It's kind of stunning now he gets 25 minutes. So I don't know. This is just kind of a weird thing. I don't understand what that's saying. Brad, agree to disagree. It's coaching, it's players, it's lack of discipline. This is a huge disappointment in all aspects.
I think that's fair. I think we've kind of all said that.
I think that's what we said, though, right? I don't know what
it is, but I will tell you one thing.
With.
Yeah, I will tell you one thing, Brad. I mean, and I said it in my Heat checks and Hail Marys this week. Ultimately, the head coach, fairly, unfairly, whatever, he's the guy who gets the blame or he gets the credit. Everybody talks about Bill Self being the greatest coach, in college basketball. And this year they're sucking like a big dog for Kansas, and Bill Self is getting a lot of crap. Well, that's just kind of goes with the territory. I don't think Brad Underwood cares. But ultimately,
you got to give Brad Underwood credit. I don't care. You can say this, that he doesn't do this. This is a dude that's won a Big Ten title, 2 Big Ten tournament titles, gotten them to Elite Eight. First time they've been to the Sweet 16 since 2005. And I know we think it's like, it doesn't really, that's 20 years ago. They've been there once in 20 years. So we got to give him some credit and props too. But at the same time, that doesn't mean he's doing a good job this year. I just don't think it fits. You know what I mean? I just don't. And I think what they were trying to do, honestly, they were trying to play a lot like Wisconsin plays with but they don't run the same stuff and they don't get the same looks from 3. And even if they do, they don't make them. So, and I go figure this out for me. How's every guy, there's this thing on Twitter, how does every guy get worse shooting the ball? What happens? Well,
I will tell you, it's interesting because coaching AAU and playing against a lot of these big city teams, when I lived in Atlanta and Dallas, I think there is something to be said for the Tim Anderson developmental coach who really does the skill stuff well. I remember last year, Ked, you and I were there before a game and watching Tim put Domask through a bunch of drills ball handling wise. I'm not saying that doesn't get done by the staff, but what I am saying is that, there are little pieces and parts, and when you take them apart and put them back together, you've got new coaches, you got new players, you got a whole bunch of parts that have to go together. And if we knew this team was going to be together for 2 more years, we'd all be excited. But we know it's a one and done. And that makes it very frustrating because you're not going to get that payoff the next. That's one thing Matt Painter does different than almost every coach in the Big Ten is these guys are going to be around. and they're gonna, you're gonna see this development.
But he's a bad coach now too.
I agree, because now they're not winning enough. Yes, and
they're 19-8. Like, I mean, we're suddenly like, they've lost 3 in a row and they're 19-8. So I don't know. It's like he's a bad coach now too. So I don't know.
And by the way, and some people, not in this one today, but we had some guy on the TV go, well, I don't know, guys get hurt a lot. It's probably Fletch, and you're like, seriously, so yeah, when you lose, there's going to be a lot of fingers that are pointed all over the place. And I do have a solution for the coaching. Here's what I would do if I was Brad Underwood, because the defense has looked horrendous. And Sturdy and I have talked about this, and I've said it on the radio show. I would go to Bruce Weber. You could probably pay him double what he's getting paid to broadcast games. And I'd say, I'm going to pay you double that. You're going to be my defensive coordinator. You don't have to recruit a single person, because I got Jeff Alexander. I got Orlando Antigua. We're going to do that. And I would have Bruce run the defense. And I think Illinois would probably have a lot of the problems resolved fairly quickly.
It's
now, that'll never happen.
That. Okay, but here's my question. The last 3 years, who could have they had on the defense who probably would do a lot of the same things that Bruce Weber does
defensively? Frazier.
But they didn't want
as we speak.
Yeah, no, I know. Same. But I think the thing about him is I think that Chester didn't have want to do the same things or they didn't want to do what he wanted to do defensively. So they didn't follow his lead. Yeah. And so maybe they should have, because here's what I look at right now. Where's West Virginia defensively? Now they lost
ahead of Illinois.
They lost DeVries. They lost one of their best players, but they're 18th in the country defensively. And it's not like they have undersized guys too. I mean, they have a bunch of size, whatever. So here's my question. Imagine if you had your offense that you have, where you're 15th in the country, and then you have the 18th best defense. Guess what? You're going to have a legit shot at being there where you need to be, because they're just not. And I think the defense is the biggest issue. Now, the offense, part of the reason the defense is bad is because the offense actually scores a lot when, and then, so let's say you get this, the offense scores at a good rate, but a lot of it's offensive rebound. I get that, and so forth. But at the other side is this. They turn it over. When they don't score, it's because they turn it over. And that leads to runouts, and that kills your defense too, because transition, and then even all the threes they take, if you don't get that offensive rebound, what's it lead to? Transition. You saw that against Michigan State. Michigan State, when they get that long three, they're running, and it really kills you. So, yeah.
Like I said, I know the odds of it are so minute that it'll never happen, but you put Bruce Weber as the.
Can I say this though? People keep talking about, the bad offense. The offense is ranked 15th in the country. I don't think. I'm not saying that Tyler Underwood is some offensive genius or anything, but I mean, that's the. I mean, I don't know. It's 15th best offense in the country is good enough to win, but you have to guard. You have to guard somebody, and I just don't like. They're playing on defense. They play a lot of analytics defensively too. I'm not a fan. I mean,
analytics. Here's the problem, Brad and Ked. You can argue this too, but analytics are awesome, but there's so much that you can't measure. Like, for example, if I decide analytically I can let Brad shoot. Well, if I let Brad shoot, he's going to automatically be a better shot because I'm not contesting his shot, which means the analytics aren't. It's hard to explain that to somebody who's younger, who just looks at, like the difference between me as an old sales guy versus somebody 15 years younger than me is a younger sales guy wants to look through sales reports and find somebody who's at 0.15 instead of 0.07 and go, I'm going to call on that guy. Whereas I'm going to go call on and get to know all my customers so that I can grow it. You know what I mean? And so with this one, the analytics are, we let Brad shoot. Well, maybe the reason Brad doesn't shoot well is because other teams still guard him. They don't let him shoot. And then you reduce the number of anonymous guys who score 20 against us for their team.
Illinois does that a lot. They refuse. If they find a player, because they're really big in numbers and analytics, if they find a guy who they think can shoot, they're not going to guard him. And Mike, is weird you say that because I thought about that the Minnesota game. I forget the player's name. I mean, just horrible shooter. But if you even at least hedge a little bit and make him think about it, they may not have those career nights. But in the grand scheme of things, they have more and bigger problems than that. I mean, a lot of people, well, I know all three of us are probably getting texts right now. I know I am, and people are frustrated saying this team is done, they're lost. We are all frustrated. You know what? Yes, we're media guys and we cover the games, and it's much easier and it's nice when you're covering a team that wins. And I've not heard Brad say this a lot, and I know he hasn't, and I'm going to. Injuries matter. I'm just sorry. I've always used this old analogy. If you have I love my truck. I have a big Dodge Ram truck, and if you took my battery out my truck or my Hemi out of my truck, it's not going to run the same. It's the same thing in terms of basketball. You take out Visa, to who we, at least two of us here, think he's probably the most valuable player on the team, and he gutted it out today. And he wasn't himself. And to be honest with you guys, I heard he didn't feel well last Saturday, to tell you the truth. He's gutting it out. So, and then Kylan Boswell, who was a better three-point shooter, I think 38% when he came in to Illinois from Arizona. He's not been the same. So and Will Riley went through a stretch where he was sick. When you're sick, it's different. And I applaud all those kids that have been out there that are trying to win games, because obviously Ivica wasn't feeling well. He didn't start tonight. And I was surprised he played at all, because from what I was told, he wasn't even going to suit up. So, I don't know who worked the magic or the voodoo or whatever. He's maybe using that stick that Kylan Boswell uses to get him to play. But I will say this. I'm tired of hearing them talk about how they're going to be dangerous in the tournament. I want them to get whole. Be a team. Huh?
Yeah, they're not dangerous.
No, they're not. It sounds good, but they're not. But if they are healthy and they're shooting the ball well, they can play. But we have Illinois fans and media guys alike, we've not seen that. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Yeah, no, I think it's funny. So now we got these comments. I got to go. I got to talk with this. Sean has done a great job. But on their 8-game win streaks, you realize 6 of those games are against quad 3 and quad 4 teams in the Big Ten. There are no quad 3 and 4 teams in the Big Ten in the men's side. It's like playing Minnesota every game. For 6 of those 8 games. So they've done amazing because of what they've had to deal with. But those are all games that we thought they would win handily with their regular lineup. You know what I mean? That when we went into this season, what they did that has been awesome was winning at Maryland. That was insane. That's one of the best.
I think winning at Indiana, you're right, Brad. It's different, but here's what I will say to disagree with that. They're beating the teams they're supposed to beat. Illinois should have beat UCLA. They should have beat Northwestern. That's what I think. I think that's the difference, because I think they're at 20 wins already. If Illinois wouldn't have slipped up and lost some of those silly games early, this loss tonight wouldn't have mattered. Maybe Michigan State, because it's home, it stings.
I agree with you, Ked, but I would also say that there are no teams as bad as what they're, as.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, there's nobody that bad. So the women are just doing a great. I don't know. I think you
can't knock
Sean
what
is
you're
fantastic.
doing. Yeah, you can't knock what they're doing, but the schedule, there are differences in strength of schedule. And
well, it's like we talked about.
Don't you tell a Michigan State fan that.
Yeah, well, and that's why they were so good. But then give Michigan State credit. The last couple games, after looking like they were going to struggle, then they win at Illinois, and then they beat Purdue. So I don't know. I think that I think Illinois is probably going to be. I think they have to win one more game to get in the tournament. I think winning
Iowa, baby.
Iowa's the game they really need to win. If they beat Iowa at home, then you're going to look at it and you're going to be in a situation where you have 18 and 13. Even if they in the regular season, I think they will get in. But if they lose out and they're 17 and 14, even with all the metrics and all the quad 1 wins and all the strength of schedule, they're still going to be very much on the bubble. They may be a play-in game or something in that situation. Like, seriously. So yeah, they got to win. They got to win some games, and Purdue's reeling right now. And it's so weird in college basketball because you can go from the top of the heap. Kansas should have beat Houston at home. I don't know if you guys watched that game. It was a total and complete and utter meltdown. And they got beat by a 500 tonight by BYU.
Yeah,
was
91 to 57, which is the most.
They've just gone.
Kansas lost 91. Oh my God.
That's the worst loss for a ranked team to an unranked team in a long time. It's a historic loss.
They're basically a lot like Illinois right now. So maybe it's the Illinois curse of Illinois. It's the Bill Self. It's the Illinois coach's curse. So they've lost since that loss to Houston. They've lost to Baylor by 11, Kansas State, Utah, who's not good, and BYU by 500. So the only wins they have are Colorado, and then they beat Iowa State at home. Go figure that one by 17. But yeah, so this is it's been a weird thing. I just think it's a weird year in college basketball. They have so many new guys playing for all these teams, and so many guys that they don't fit, and it's difficult for some of these teams to get there. And Bill Self is obviously one of the best coaches in college basketball history. He's been fantastic, but I think the last couple of years have been tough, for them. And so we'll see what he's able to do. He's going to go in next year. And I think the problem both of them have is they haven't, Kansas went out and got a guy who was supposed to be really good for them in AJ Storr, and he's been, just awful.
He's played half the minutes and got half the results,
Well, yeah, he's worse in every category from what he was a year ago at Wisconsin or the year before at St. John's. Just everything's worse. So he's been brutal. So what do you do? So I think, just like Illinois, I think they went out and got some guys, and Kylan Boswell's shooting a career worst from three. Ben Hummerkaus is shooting a career worst from three. I don't know. They just haven't been productive.
No, they haven't. Go ahead, Michael.
No, I know. My point was that this is going to be gut check time for both the Illinois coaches, the Illinois players, and more so the Illinois fans, because we haven't seen a season maybe take the turn that this has since Brad Underwood's second year, when he was flushing the system of the John Gross era players and all that. And this year just hasn't gone right from a standpoint of up and down play. And then you get some injuries. And I think if you got Brad, you sat down with him, he'd tell you that this hasn't been his best year coaching. And, you put them all together and you've got a team that is struggling. Now, the only hope you have is you have, 5 games left, and you got to play them. So you might as well try to win them. And you've got to get your guys into a mindset that, okay, maybe we're supposed to lose, but we're sure as heck going to go down fighting. And that's where I go with this is try to get them to toughen up. You saw the post I did on Twitter today with Rick Pitino talking to his team about, where do you come from that when things don't go your way, you pack up your bags and go home. And Illinois has to really look that way. And the players and the coaches have to look themselves in the mirror, and they have to think, what could I do different or better to start getting better results? And while you're still alive and kicking, fans can give up and say, screw it, I'm out of here for this year. But players and coaches can't. So you sure as hell better make it as productive as you can these last few games.
I'm going to tell you guys what, and all the thousands of people out there listening, you heard it here first from K Pizzle. They're going to beat Duke Saturday.
Oh, God, Jesus. Okay, kid.
Kendrick, I don't know what I don't want your smoking or drinking.
But I want some.
Hey, man.
I'll have what he's having. I will have what he's having.
I'm having cranberry juice, buddy. That's it.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Ked's the first guy to smoke cranberry juice.
Oh, my goodness.
So, Brad, you were going to say something, but I think that knocked you off kilter.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
You totally threw me for a loop, Ked, because I thought you had brain cells, and now I'm not sure. I think you must be inebriated on drugs or something.
Listen, when this happens Saturday, you guys better have a Come to Jesus podcast, because I'm telling you, you got to believe with that big I in the middle, baby.
Well,
I'll tell you what, I'm by you next time. If they beat Duke on Saturday, when you come, I'm sure you'll come to either Iowa or Purdue game. I'll buy you some Dave's hot chicken because you deserve it if they beat Duke.
All right.
Do you like Dave's hot chicken?
Oh, of course I do.
Okay.
Be careful.
Yeah, I went to one the other day down here in Dallas because there's like 50 of them seem to open up. And I got like the mild, and I don't generally mind spicy food, but I'm like, geez, the mild stuff I'm not even man enough for at that place.
What? But I love the spicy food, man. Spice it up, baby.
Gotta
make my nose run. It's only good there.
See, the problem is I've got the Dave's hot chicken is right next to Torchy's Tacos, and if you're ever down in Dallas and you get an opportunity to get Torchy's Tacos, that place is spectacular. So I'm always like, I can go to the place that I'm not certain I like, or I can go to the place that I can think of like 7 different things I'm going to order, and I end up in the taco place.
So is Dave's one of our new sponsors now, or what?
I just said
Dave's or
Torchy's. Hey, you're
please.
picking Duke, so I'm going to Dave's. I mean, I'm buying you Dave's, man. I'm telling you, I'll buy you. You can pick something different there in Champaign.
Listen, man. Look. Okay, I know you can see my face. I like my chicken, baby. That's all I'm gonna say. I'll leave it at that.
Hey, I'll tell you what. You know what's good? Have you been to Indy? Have you gone to Joella's in Indy?
No, I've not had that. It's pretty good.
You have to get some Joella's. I took Chester there, and then Chester took Brad there, and I'm telling you what.
I remember that. You told me that.
Yeah, they loved it. So, I mean, it's good stuff. We were trying to get them to franchise, and I know we're going way off topic here, but we're trying to get them franchised in Champaign, but they don't do franchises yet. But anyway, Joella's is pretty good. So,
because you could start one over your neck of the woods, Brad.
Yeah, I could.
Ted, have you ever thought of owning a restaurant? I mean, that might be a...
Listen, have you seen the way fans react to us on Twitter? If I owned a restaurant, it'd be closed in 2 days because somebody will complain and be mad. In today's society, no, thank you, man. I'm good. Have you seen the Michigan State fans? The way they treat me, how much they love me? I'm good, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, Michigan State fans, they're so ironic because they're like, oh, we beat you this year. And it's like, yeah, okay, I mean,
a lot of people have.
Underwood, yeah, exactly. Well, Underwood's 5-8 against Izzo. So Izzo's had his fair share, but it's like, you're going to go after a team that in the last 5 years has 3 titles.
And dominated. Exactly. That's okay.
You know?
Okay.
And then here's the one Son Taurus, spring football is taking too long to get here. Look, I'm a firm believer in that, but I hate to say it, the way college football is going, there ain't going to be spring football much longer because the Matt Rule. I think
it's going to end.
Yes, it is. I think you may be looking at the last year or two of spring football because coaches don't want the transfer window. They don't want to advertise for other schools to come pick their team apart for guys who are good but not playing yet. I think you're gonna see that die.
I do too. I think spring football's spring games and all that stuff. The only thing is, the one thing I'll say, they make money at those in like SEC areas and Ohio State.
I think it'll be like a fair. I think they'll do something. Do you remember back when Butcher was quarterback for Illinois?
He was the future. John Butcher was the future, Mike.
Yeah, but they used to take them and they would get all the kids because back when Connor was little, we would go to that. We'd take the kids and they would go over and you'd have passing and all sorts of drills and you could play with the your kids could play with the college guys. And I look at it and I'm thinking to myself, that's how I would want to do. You do some sort of festival like that and you get the community and people can glad hand and shake hands with the players, etc. I think that's the way you go.
I agree.
Make money off of that.
Oh, they'll pay these guys. They'll pay them $10,000 to sign autographs for a day.
Yeah,
there's so many.
And then you've got something you can prove, and then you get as many people as you can there, so you can charge them even more money for it. Now, Nathan Durst has. You guys can comment on this. Max Sutter has Illini in his top 5 schools.
Well, yes. I'm going to comment, and if I were a betting man, I was being sarcastic about Duke and Illinois, but if I had to say today, and I hope you're listening, Mr. Sutter, I would venture to believe that he would probably be a Penn State lean, is my guess. From what I was told, I know Illinois has done a great job with him, but I would never count out Daddy Bielema because he's been on fire, and I know it'd be good for him and J.C. Anderson to play well together if J.C. decided to commit to Illinois as well, who is arguably, as you know, they're 2 and 3 in the state. So the Illinois is not going to go wrong. I think they'll get one of them, but I do think Suter's in love with Penn State, and I understand why, because they do a great job with their tight ends.
We got a restaurant comment.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think, I would definitely say that Penn State's in a good spot. North Carolina too, obviously with the connection his dad had with Belichick. They're such an athletic family. His older sister actually played basketball, same basketball team with my daughter, Sutter, and so she was really athletic and ended up playing soccer too. It's tough. So, yeah,
So here's Brad destroyed and ran off whole classes. Now, I'm going to tell you, and this is going to sound bad because I am pro player, but the people who aren't here right now, if you want to take a look at their statistics and tell me that this team is markedly different, I'm not certain that that's the case. But having the age and the culture would be a benefit. I'm just not certain if that would come on to points per game, et cetera. Assistant coach's turnover is something that happens. And again, I'd have to go back and dissect, why people left, et cetera. And sometimes those are things that as fans and even, maybe only the insiders like Ked and Brad have even any whiff of what's going on behind the scenes. But you are going to have turnover in the assistant coach job. And I mean, Brad, you're still friends with assistant coaches who've been through Illinois, 15, 20 years ago. The turnover is, unfortunately, it's a very gypsy-like job.
It's not going to change. I mean, I get what he's saying. They want to become older. I think Brad Underwood mentioned that in his press conference about Wisconsin being older. But you're right. I mean, Tracy Webster, who's at Illinois, good friend of mine and Brad's. Jay Price, who's at Illinois, good friend of mine and Brad's. And Chester Frazier, who played at Illinois and who coached Illinois, is a damn good friend of mine and Brad's. Tim Anderson is a good friend of mine and Brad. So you're right, and it's going to happen, But I agree with the person who made the comment. Yeah, it would be nice to be over. Brad Underwood knew this team was going to be young, and a lot of people were mad because he said how good this team could shoot. And guys, let's be honest, they were. There were so many guys. I mean, I could tell you, Tracy Webster told me once he went to a workout, and he doesn't throw compliments out to people likely at all. He's a kid. This team can shoot the snot out of it. We've heard that from people. I've seen a little bit of it myself, not tons of it, but I've seen it. I've had players' parents say to me, and that played at the Division I level, how dangerous this team is. They just hit a wall, and they're not shooting it well. All those people can't be wrong. Brad Underwood is not going to go out there and say this is one of the best shooting teams I've ever had, knowing the fact that he could look like shit and eggs on his face, because he knows better. They're not performing.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I also think shot selection is a part of it too. I mean, I think shot selection hurts you because I think they take some bad shots at times, or maybe shots that they don't need to take. And, it's typical. They make a little run and they get back into it and then they take a bad shot. And then the next thing the other team's going to the other end and that's over. So, yeah, I love those guys. I mean, Jay Price, go down the line. We were talking to Tracy last time. He's been to a couple games here scouting. He's been to a couple Illinois games scouting their guys, for the NBA, but I would say this. The one thing about it, I think, the college basketball landscape, the one thing I'll say about Brad Underwood is he will adapt. He went last year and he said, look, I got Coleman Hawkins and Terrence Shannon coming back. We got a chance to be really good. So I need to go out and get dudes who can come in and play right away. Older guys, and we're going to use those guys and we're going to win that way. Then the next one was, this year it was like, okay, we got a lot of guys leaving and we got some turnover and different issues. So let's get some, let's go get some some Euro guys and go with that route. And maybe they'll be a little bit more, a lot of it was they're going to be more mature than some of the freshmen coming in from the United States. But I think he'll make a shift. I think he'll still take Euro guys, but I also think he knows now I got to have old guys too. I got to have veteran guys who come in. The other thing they probably have, you know, and you know, the other thing you're going to have to see is that you can't. There's no more fifth-year guys now, so the college game is going to change again. And I know this is hard for people to fathom, but John Tonje is like 25 years old. So you know, that's a different animal than an 18-year-old, 19-year-old guy. And so you're going to see college basketball change in next year again. It's going to make a little bit of a different change. And when you're still going to have the portal, so you're going to have guys available. But I think you're going to see a shift in where you're not going to have as many super old teams and guys with, you know, a bunch of years of experience and guys who are doing, you know, going to have 5-year, 6-year guys. So it's going to be a little bit different. So I think that right now what you're going to see is Illinois kind of make another adjustment. Underwood will shift, and he'll come with a different plan. I think you're going to take Euro guys, but I think you're going to see them take a couple guys in the portal that are going to be really impact guys. They're going to try and find some impact guys to mix with those European guys and the returning guys that they hope to have.
Well, they're recruiting both. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead, kid.
They're recruiting both, but I think, Brad, that what you just said was probably one of the most powerful statements of this podcast. I think he's aware now. You can have young talent, you can have guys that are talented NBA guys, but you're right. You need those older kids, not just because of the fact that they've been there, just being older, it makes a difference, and you saw that last year, and that helps because this team was talented, but even as talented as they were, you know, they got blasted by UConn, so it's going to happen. But games like tonight, I don't think it mattered. I think Wisconsin shot the ball great, but I don't think you would have lost to USC. I don't think you would have lost to Northwestern, and I think you'd beat Michigan State last Saturday. I personally believe that, just because by being older. So I do think I think they'll look at that. That's what's going to happen in the transfer portal. And, you know, Coach Underwood, he mentioned that last week. And I don't want people thinking that Illinois is out there contacting kids, because they're not. But let's face it, some of these kids are already talking about, you know, knowing they're going to leave. And Illinois is going to lose some players. I'm just going to tell you right now.
There's no question. My first transfer portal contact for this year was December. Like, I mean, I had somebody for next year, like someone saying, hey, this kid, I started getting contacts in December from a kid. Hey, this kid wants to go to Illinois. What do you know about, you know, what are they looking for? So forth, so on. So, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty enough, you know, so no, I don't think that. And a lot of people they don't understand. I mean, I not trying to be mean here, but you guys don't get it. I mean, you know, you have to get work in the portal right now. Bielema does it in the portal. You got to fill your holes in the portal. I mean, that every team is doing that. So this is what you have to do. So anyway, this is and you can, you know, Illinois went in the portal last year and they seemed to do okay. I don't think it was a rebuilding year.
Well, and look, you see people, they go, well, you know, coach didn't get the right guys. He can't pick players. And there is going to be, you look at the NFL or NBA draft where they've got years of film on guys, and the hit rate is less than 50%. And so when you're looking at transferring, you're going to have some years that aren't as good as others, just like you have some classes of freshmen that aren't as good as others. And so I think you've really got to be able to build that roster. And what people don't understand is that if you get KJ and Tomislav later on, you've got to pick complementary players, not knowing exactly who you're going to have later on to make sure they all mix, because there's no guarantees in the recruiting world. So, I mean, putting together a roster is not like you're sitting there, you know, in a video game and saying, well, I'm going to get this guy and that guy and that guy. And then you kind of, you know, you don't have all the pieces come off the table the way it does in recruiting, where you think you may get one guy, but then he's gone to Kentucky, or BYU pulls out $7 million for another guy, and you're left going, oh, I didn't think and you've got to be able to react very quickly on those things.
No question. I do think many of our commenters are on the same stuff same drinks and things that Ked is on. So I think they've had this as well. I mean, don't recruit guys because they're tall because you have other tall guys. Makes no sense. You have to have more than we see this right now. Do we not need more bigs?
Look, I'm telling you right now, Brad, you've had to listen to it from me for years. I just look at a guy like James Brown, who wasn't the greatest player in the world, but he's decent. I would have got him instead of letting him go to North Carolina, and I would have had him on the bench, but I don't have the money to donate to get him on the team. And that's what this whole marketplace is about.
You get 15 players now. You get 15 players. That's it. That's the most you can have on your roster. Counting walk-ons, whatever you want to say. You better have some dudes. You better have some guys who can play on your bench
and
too.
You better have a payroll.
And you better have a large NIL factor. And the thing that I would like to see him do a better job of is taking those guys, and I think Jason Jackson is a good example. Taking guys who want to be here and kind of developing them. But I think there was other guys. I mean, that maybe you take because they want to be at Illinois and they enjoy that's like a dream school for them. And they don't have to be, but at the bottom you got guys who can actually play a little bit on your bench who can when you have injuries and so forth. So so they're going to have to bring in more guys for next year, and especially in the front court. I mean, they can't come in with just Merez, even if they get Merez and Tommy back. And it looks really good with Merez right now coming back. But Tommy, I don't think Tommy's transferring anywhere. It's whether or not he gets a good professional deal. But I mean, so even if you get those guys back, though, you see tonight what happens when one of them gets hurt. And then the other one's sick. You don't have enough. So you better have more dudes that can play up front than just those two guys. And so that's where if you want to win and you want to win consistently.
And the other thing, Brad, is you have to have somebody, like you said, you have to have somebody who's willing to come here, who's got talent. You could get me to come, and that is no big deal. But they've got talent, and they've got to be able to recognize that if Morez and Tomislav are there, they may not get many minutes. And then you've got to find a way to figure out how you're going to fit that person in your budget, because somebody has to give that money.
Yep.
And somebody's going to go, hey, somebody doesn't want to sit at a cocktail party and go, the fourth string center, that's my guy.
That's my guy.
They want to say I was important in landing Terrence Shannon Jr. They don't want to say, hey, that sturdy guy? Yeah, I got him.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, I look over at these comments. Here's another one. Ty Rodgers be shooting better than Kylan Boswell. Okay. Rodgers had 1 3-point attempt in his career. There's a reason he only took one.
Was that warm-ups?
Yeah, he only took one. It was actually at Madison Square Garden against Texas his freshman year, and he shot from 22 feet, and it was probably shot at 25 feet. He only missed by 3 feet, though, so it's a good look. And then we've got Jeremiah Fears over this. I love Jeremiah Fears, think he's really talented, but he's shooting 25% from three, and the same thing we're bashing Boswell for. He's shooting 25% from three in conference, 43% from two, has a little his last he's had at least 3 turnovers in like 6 consecutive games. They had 5 3 times. So he's a really talented kid. But again, if you're relying on freshmen to win you basketball games, there's a reason Oklahoma's 3-10 in the SEC. It's because it's hard to win when you have freshmen that you're relying on as your best player. And so it's the same thing. We think, and I totally agree, Mike. I think you posted, we think Merez is top 25. Merez is really good. He really fits. He's physical. He's tough. And he's got some development to do, on the offensive side of the ball, but you can't replace his energy and effort and things that he brings that will. So I think Merez is going to be really good. And that's the thing I kind of hang my hat on, is bringing back a couple of guys like him, and having guys like that and Merez is just ready to burst out too. He's going to have that sophomore leap, but you got to put some older guys with him. The other thing Illinois is going to have trouble with going forward is this. They're not going to be able to take any senior transfers. It's going to have to be juniors. or they're going to have to keep some guys. So this is where they're in a kind of a quandary. When you look at this, and this is why they hired a general manager too, to kind of go through this, because it is different. It's not just like you're trying to put together a roster and you all basically have a salary cap. I mean, everybody has a different salary cap, but every team has a salary cap that you're going to have to put together. So, whether it's Will Riley or the Constanza kid on the wing, one of them, Dame Sarr, whoever it is that's coming in there to fill a wing position, or you bring in a big guy from Europe. It's the 6'10" French kid who visited or something like that. Whatever it is, one of these guys who was at Basketball Without Borders the other day, they watched last week. No matter who you bring in, they are going to have you're going to have multiple guys that can really multiple guys that can really play, and I think that's where you're going to have a lot of guys who can score. You're going to have a lot of depth. You're going to have to put this all together. And this is the hard part about this NIL era. It's more like playing an NBA. It's like playing fantasy basketball. It really is. And you only get this much. And so sometimes it might be a guy who you get on the cheap who's going to be one of the key guys, as you look at this. And, I even look back at, when Marcus Damas committed, it wasn't like he was going to be for like an all Big Ten player.
Exactly.
And he turned out to be. So you got to find guys like that. So people say, oh, they did a poor job. Well, okay, this year they didn't get those guys, but man, Marcus Damas is pretty good. Terrence Shannon's pretty good. Those are pretty good transfers to add to your team.
They are. I'll tell you, I don't know who's out there. I couldn't tell you, but I didn't like the transfer portal at first, but I like it. Mike came up with the name. What was it? Portal Combat or something like that?
No, that was Brad. Yeah.
Was that Brad? I love it. I tell you, that's one of my favorite times of the year, because you never know. And there's so many players out there right now that are watching, and you don't know, and you think, man, because as a college basketball guy, most of the people who are listening, they're thinking, man, I wish I would have watched this game so you can know more about the kid. Illinois is going to be fine. This is just one of those years, and it happens. I'm going to tell you. I mean, if you look at Michigan State, I don't know which one of you made a comment earlier, you're going to have a year like that. Matt Painter's not having a quote-unquote great year. Brad Underwood will adjust, and he will get back to winning ways. He hates to lose, and this team he put together was one that he thought they could reach a Final Four, but it didn't happen. And for the fans out there, to three of us, or whether it be to Larry or to Matt Stevens or to Chris, he's not going anywhere. So you can forget that. I mean, I know people may be frustrated. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think, like I said, you have to really look back at what it was like when the Weber years were going down, and then the whole Gross era. Underwood saved us from a fate worse than death, and that was mediocrity. And he brought Illinois back to the island of relevancy. There's going to be a lot has to happen before you decide you're going to get rid of Brad Underwood. That doesn't mean he can't improve. That doesn't mean that he can't get better. But I mean, goodness gracious, Josh Whitman has got three players in the big revenue sports now. The only other sport that really draws a ton of revenue is volleyball, and there's some opportunities there maybe at some point in time.
Yeah. No, so, I think Underwood's fine. I mean, does he need to maybe make some adjustments? He does. I think,
but we can document what he does. He may not make them in games as quickly as people like.
Right.
But he does from season to season. I'm not certain anybody makes bigger adjustments.
Well, yeah, he changed his whole defensive philosophy after the first couple of years. He went to a totally different defensive philosophy, and then he went to they play through Kofi, and then they decide, they don't like that playing through a big guy in the post, so they change that, and then they go to a different style, and they've gone to a different offensive style. I mean, every year, and I think some of it's to try and fit guys. I think that they have what's the best for their for their current squad, and you're going to miss though. I mean, if these guys, the weird part about this Illinois team is if they were shooting at their normal historical norms, like the players, like if Boswell was shooting 38% for three, Hummerkaus, and I know he hit a couple tonight, but if he's shooting his normal percentage of 38% from three and so forth, you just start adding that and you think, what would they be like? In that regard, well, they'd suddenly probably be a top 5 offensive efficiency team. I mean, that's I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. They'd be like Wisconsin
Hey,
offensively.
Kofi's got 2 more years, Brad. Let's get him back.
Can we? Can we? I think we can. Why not?
Wouldn't that
He's
be
making
great?
some good
Well-
money. And good for him. He must be making some good money. You see his salary is pretty good, but he bought his mom a house in Texas. So good for Kofi.
Well, good for him. Yeah, one of the nicest guys there is. So, folks, we're going to get a wrap on this because if Ked doesn't get to bed by 11, he gets really grumpy the next day, and then we get complaints from the Quad Cities. So
I have to reply to all my 475,000 texts and tweets and private messages. So,
yeah, so he needs to reply quickly. If you're not certain if he's replying to you or not, don't worry about it. There's a lot for him to reply to. So we would just ask you guys, IlliniGuys.com, $99 a year, 27 cents a day. If you want inside information, Sturdy and Ked distribute an awful lot. We just had some stuff today. Let's just say fans had an idea about who was feeling and how they were feeling long before anything was ever out there. And people said, boy, that was worth my subscription just to get this type of information on game day. So those are great things you can get on our message boards behind a paywall. Look, that's what helps us get the dollars so we can send Brad to New York City and he can watch the Illini play Duke.
Punished in person.
Win, baby. Just win.
But we also have our IlliniGuys.com YouTube channel. And, of course, as you see down at the bottom, at Mike Kegley, at Sturdy32, at KedPrince4, at Illini_guys, please go ahead and follow us on Twitter. That helps us as well. And we would love to be your source for Illinois and Big Ten information. And, of course, you can listen to our radio show, the Illini Guys Sports Spectacular, every Friday or Saturday. Go to IlliniGuys.com, find the particular station that's closest to you, and you'll know when to tune in. And, of course, you can get that on podcast just like you can Eye on the Illini, just like you can get my Heat Checks and Hail Marys, Brad's Sturdy for 30, or Ked's Recruiting Roundup. The more that you can share our stuff with your friends and your Illini friends or your Big Ten friends, the better we can give you this information. So we appreciate all of your support and thank you for that. Until next time, folks, go Illini.